The Baptist Association set up a disaster relief fund following the Springwood fires. Over the past few years, we've seen significant disasters. We saw a significant drought, then followed by a terrible bushfire season in late 2019, early 2020, and then floods last year, and now devastating floods this year as well.
Well, it all started on the 19th of March 2021 when we had these horrendous floods. I guess at the church we immediately recognised a number of people that we knew who would be impacted. The following week at the church we raised the question of what can we do, and following on from that, within sort of a week, the church had raised $13,000 of its money from our people and from our church funds.
We had a tremendous input of funds that has enabled local churches on the ground to respond to the disaster in localized ways.
We then approached the Baptist Disaster Fund. From there we were able to get a further $25,000.
It was really good to be able to contact local people, some that we knew, some that we'd just seen while we were shopping, and let them know that there was help available, that our church was able to offer these funds in their assistance to recover.
There are Baptist churches responding in disaster-affected communities across the state, from the far south coast, the western districts, the Riverina, the Hawkesbury Valley and Blue Mountains area, the far north coast. So it's really been a statewide response because the disasters have been so widespread.
We started off supporting fire victims in just the very material ways, food and immediate accommodation, then morphed into much more of an individual counselling and comforting and listening, giving them space to share their grief and their loss.
Steve Maynard started responding to individuals who had been disaster affected in his role as the pastor at Gundagai Baptist. And when he retired from that role after many years, he became a part-time chaplain in providing chaplaincy throughout the area of the Riverina.
I can think of a couple who lost over 90% of their farm to the fires, and fortunately their house was spared, but that was all. And just the trauma of seeing not only the land around them scorched, but their stock, all of their stock and their pets were all lost in the fires as well. As I spent time with them last week, I was just so touched by their appreciation, in their words, of my friendship, and just being there, walking through that journey of trauma and loss through to recovery.
From the very beginning of this work, we could see that churches were well placed to respond to disasters, and that's because they're in the community for the long haul. So after the agencies pull out, after the government pulls out, it's the churches that are there often to see some of the longer effects of what happens after a disaster. And so our churches have responded in ways that have been incredibly beautiful and localized to their own community, and that's because they've seen what happens 1 year, 2 years after what has been a really significantly traumatic event for a community.